Where's the bag with my tambourine in it? Gurudev, Gurudev, just give me the note. Kripa bindu diya koroe dase Krina pekayati hina. Gurudev kripa bindu diya koroe dase trina pekayoti hina. Sakala sahane bolo diya koro nijamane spriyahina. Sakale saman kurate shakati deonata jata jata. Tabito gaibo harinam suke aparada behata. Kabe no kripa labaye jana kritarta hoye benata. Shakti buddhi ame atiti koromore atma saka. Yogyata vichare kichunahi pai tomara karuna sara. Karuna na hoile kandiya kandiya pranana rahiko aro. Gurudev kripa bindu diya dase trina pekayati hina. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Oh hey Vaishnava Thakur. Oh hey Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagara. Dase koruna kori. Vaishnava Thakur Dwara Sagara Idase Koruna Kori Diyapadachaya Shorohe Amaya Tomara Charana Dori Chaya Beka Domi Chaya Dosha Shodhi Chaya Guna Deho Dase Chaya Satsanga Deho He Amare Boshashi Shangera Ashe Ekaki Amar Nahi Pai Bolo Harinama Sankirtane Tumi Kripa Kori Sharabindu Diya Deho Krishna Namadhane Krishna se tomar, Krishna jite paro, Tamara shakti ache. Amito Ganga Krishna Krishna Boli Daitava Pache Pache Huh? What happened? What happened? That's it. Oh hey Vaishnava Thakur Doyara Sagara Idase Koruna Kori Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur, Vaishnava Thakur. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. What do you got next? No, do Lord Chaitanya first. Yeah. Sri Sachitanya Ashtaka. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his hometown. Where's his hometown? Navadvip. He's the hero of Navadvip. Then he goes to Jagannath Puri, he goes all over South India. Radha and Krishna combined. You worship Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through Sankirtan. Then you enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Ujjvala Varana Gaura Varadeham Vilasita Niravari Bhavavideham Tribhuvana Pavana Kribayalesham Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Satchitanayam Gadgaram Karababa Vikaram Durjana Tarjana Nada Visharam Bhavabhaya Janakaranam Karunam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Satchitanayam Aradam Bharatara Charu Kapolam Indu Vindindita Nakachaya Richiram Jalpita Nijaguna Nama Vinodam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Satchitanayam Vigalita Nayana Kamala Jaladharam Bhushana Navarasa Bhava Vikaram Jai Shri Satchinandan Gaura Hari Ki Jai Gatiyati Mantara Nritya Vilasam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Satchitanayam Chanchala Charu Charana Gati Ruchiram Manjira Ranjita Parajuga Madhuram Vinindita Shitala Varanam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Satchitanayam Jatikati Dora Kamandalu Dandam Divyakale Vara Mundita Mundam Durdana Kalmasha Khandana Dandam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Satchitanayam Bhushana Buraja Lakavalitam Kantikta Vindara Vararuchiram Malayaja Vera Chitta Ujjvala Tilakam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Satchitanayam Nindita Aduna Kamala Dalyanayana Ajanulam Dikta Shri Bhujajigalam Lavivaras Kaishora Nartaka Vesham Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Satchitandaya Udralavarana Gauravara Deham Vilasita Niravadi Bhava Videham Tribhuvana Pavana Kupaya Lesham Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Satchitandaya Jai Satchinandana, Jai Satchinandana, Jai Satchinandana, Jai Gaura Hari. Jai Satchinandana, Jai Satchinandana, Jai Satchinandana, Jai Gaura Hari. Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaura Hari Bol. Go Premanande, Divyamyanum Shesha. We're all at Mangalartik in Vrindavan with Krishna Balaram. Haribol. We'll sing it together. Vibhabari Shesha Aloka Pravisha Nitrachari Utajiva Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Hayagriva Nrisinga Vamana Srimarusudana Rajendrana Nana Shama Putana Katana Kaita Vashatana Jai Dasharakti Rama Yashoda Dulala Govinda Govinda Vrindavana Purandara Gopi Priyajana Radhika Ramana Bhuvana Sundara Vara Ravana Takara Makana Kaskara Gopi Jana Pastrahari Rajarara Kala Gopa Vrindakala Chittahari Vamshivari Yogindra Bandana Shrirandanandana Brajatana Bayahari Navina Nirara Rupa Manohara Mohana Vamshi Vihari Yashodanandana Kamsani Shudana Mikujara Savidasi Kadambhakanana Rasaparayana Vrindavipina Vivasi Ananda Vardana Primadiketana Ulashtara Jojatama Gopangana Jana Chitta Vinodana Samasta Gunagana Dhamma Jamuna Jivana Keliparayana Manasa Chanda Chakora Nam Shudarasa Gal Krishna Jasha Janamana Moda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Jai Gaura Hari Bo. Jai Go Premanande, Shri Upateshamrita, please. Thank you. Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jiva vegam udarapasta vegam etan vegan yo vishaheta dhira sarvamapi mam pritivim nashishya atyahara prayashascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangasya loyangsha shadhir bhaktir vinashyati utsahan nishchayadharyat tat karma pravartanat sangatyagat satovrate shadhir bhakti prasiddhati dadati pratagunnati bhuyamakyati prichyati bhunte bojayate chaiva sadvidam kriti lakshanam Krishneti yasya giritam manasadhriyeta Dikshasti che pranati bisha bhajantanisham Shushushaya bhajana digna mananya manya Nindari shunya hridamitsita sangaladya Drishtai sabhava janitar vapushascha doshar Na prakritavamiha bhaktya janasya pasye Gam gam nasam nakaluput buddhapena pankar Brahma dravapamapagashati niradharmai Syat Krishna nama chaditari sitapya vidya Pito patapya rasanasya nagrochikanu Hindva varat anudilam kalu saiva jushta Svadvikramad bhavati tad gadamula hantri Kannama rupa charitari sukirtananu Smrityo kramena rasanama nisinioja Tishtam grajetananuragi jananugami Kalam nayera kilamityupadesha saram Vaikuntasjanito varamadupuri tatrapi rasotsavat Vrindaranyamudarapani ramanat tatrapi govardhanaha Radha kundamihapi gokulapate premamritap lavanat Kuryadasya virajato giritate sevam vivekinakaha Karmibhyah parito hare priyataya vyaktim yayurgyaninas Tebhyo gyani vimukta bhakti parama premaika nishtastata Tebhyasta pashupala pankadadrishastabhyopi saradika Krishna tadvadiyam tadiya sarasitam naya shakakriti Krishnasyo chai pranaya vasati priyasibhyopi radha kundam chasya munibhirabhitasthadrage bhavyadayi ya preshar apyalam asulabam kim punar bhakti bhajam tat premedam sakrit api sarasnatur avishkaroti Shri Upadeshamrita Sampurnam Radhesham. And now, chapter 8, Bhagavad Gita, please. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Taraka Brahma Yoga Ata Ashtamodadhyayaha. Arjuna Vacha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adi Bhutam Chakim Proktam Adi Daivam Kim Uchyate Adi Yagya Katam Kotra Dehesmin Madhusudana Prayana Kali Chakatam Geyosini Atatvabi Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Sabhavodhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhava Karo Visarga Karma Sangita Adi Bhutam Sharo Bhava Purushashchari Daivatam Adi Yagyoham Evatra Dehe Deha Pratambara Antakale Chamameva Smaran Mukva Kalevaram Yapriyati Samadbhavam Yati Nasyatra Shangshayaha Yang Yang Vapi Smaran Bhavam Tajadyante Kalevaram Tam Tam Evaite Kaunteya Sada Tadbhava Bhavitaha Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mamanusmada Yudhyacha Mayarpita Mano Budhir Mami Vaishyasya Samshayaha Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chetasananyagamina Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Partanu Chintayan Kavim Purana Manushashitaram Anonaniyam Samanusmaredyaha Sarvasya Dataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastan Vayana Kale Manasa Chalena Bhaktya Yukto Yoga Balena Chaiva Bruvor Madhye Pranam Avesha Samyak Satam Param Purusham Upaiti Divyam Yadaksharam Veda Vado Vadanti Vishanti Yadyatta Yovita Raga Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tate Padam Sangrahena Pravakshe Sarvadvarani Samyamya Manohriti Narudyacha Mudyadhayatmana Pranam Astito Yogadharanam Om Itikaksharam Brahma Yaharan Mam Anusmaran Yaprayati Tajandeham Sayati Paramam Gatim Ananya Cheta Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityashaha Tasyaham Sulabha Partha Nitya Yukyasya Yoginam Mamupetya Punarjanma Dukalayam Ashashvatam Napnuvanti Mahatmana Samsiddhim Paramam Gataha Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna Mamupetya Tu Kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate sahasra yuga paryantam arhat yad brahmano vidu ratrim yuga sahasrantam teho ratra vidojana avyakta vyaktaya sarva prabhavantyar haragame ratyagame praliyante tatraivabhyaktya samjake bhuta grama sa evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratyagame vashapartha prabhavatyar haragame parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha yaksak sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinashyati avyakto share ityuktas tamahu paramam gatim yam prapya nanivartante tadhama paramam mama purushasa parapartha bhaktya labhyastvananyaya yasyantastani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam yatra kale tvanavratim avratim chaiva yogina prayata yanti tam kalam vakshami bharatarshava agnir jyotir ahashukla shanmasa uttarayanam tatra prayata gachanti brahma brahma vidojana dhumo ratristata krishna shanmasa dakshanayanam tatra chandamba samjyotir yogi prapya nivartate shukla krishne gati yete jagata shashvate mate ekaya yatya navratim anyaya vartate punaha naite sriti partha janan yogi muyati kashchana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna vedeshu yagneshu tapassu chaiva daneshu yat punya palam pratishtam atyeti tatsarvam idam varidva yogi param stanam upaiti chadhyam Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade Taraka Brahma Yoga Nama Ashtamodhyayaha Hari Om Sri Jagannath Ashtakam Tatachit Kalindi tata vipina sangita koravo mudhabiri nariva dana kamalasvada madhupa Brahma Shambhu Brahma Marapati Ganesha Chitapada. Start from the beginning. Kadachit kalindita tavipina sangita karavo mudhabiri nariva dana kamalasvada madhupa Rama Shambhu Brahma Marapati Ganesha Chitapado Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu me Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu me Bhuje Sabye Venum Shirasi Shiki Picham Katitate Dukulam Netrante Sahachara Kataksha Vidhate Sada Srimad Vrindavana Vasati Lila Parichayo Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Maham Bodhe Stire Kanaka Ruchire Nilashikare Vasan Prasadanta Sahaja Balabhadrena Balina Subhadra Majasta Sakala Sura Seva Vasarado Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Kripa Parabara Jala Jalada Srini Ruchiro Rama Vani Rama Spura Rama Lapan Keruhamuka Surandra Raja Shutikana Shika Gita Charito Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Tarudha Gachan Pati Milita Budeva Patalae Stuti Pradhurbhavam Pratiparamupakanya Sadaya Daya Sindhu Bandhu Sakala Jagatam Sindhu Sutaya Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Para Brahma Pida Kuvalaya Dula Ulanayano Nivasini Ladrani Hita Charano Nanta Shirasi Rasanando Radha Vapura Lingana Sukho Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Navayache Rajam Nachanakani Kyabhibhavam Nayacheham Ramyam Sakala Janakam Yam Bharavadhu Sadakale Kale Ramata Patina Gita Charito Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Haratam Samsaram Drutataram Surapate Haratam Papanam Vitatam Aparam Yarabapate Ahodine Nateni Tita Charano Nishitamida Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami avatu me Jagannatashtakam punyam yapatet prayatasuchi sarva papa vishuddhatma vishnulokam sagachyati. Shri Jagannatashtakam ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhaji ki jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Shri Rathayatra ki jai, Go Premanande. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Srimad Bhagavatam class. Haratvam samsaram drutatarama surapate. Priya, can you get me Adi Leela Volume 1? And also, 10th canto with the story of Arishtasura. Arishtasura. Hari Hari. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Say what? It's in here all right. I know that bag's in here. I can feel it. We'll sing this beautiful song, Jai Radha Madhava. With all these songs, we're making our way on the pathway back to the spiritual world. Every realm is defined by its sound vibration. And in the spiritual world, we find the vibration of, hey, I found my bag, Haribol. In the spiritual world. Thank you. Kinshana Krishna Prabhu gave me this bag. If anybody extra wants to go to India, I can put you in here. No ticket required. A few crackers, you'll be there in no time. So we'll sing this song from the spiritual world. All these songs are the ways to connect to the spiritual world, and the more that these songs go into our hearts and minds. So today when you're walking around and you're thinking, Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami, that's the song that's carrying us. Instead of the vibrations of the material world, which pull us into ideas about sense gratification and worry. The material world's very worrisome because we have a stake in it and we think we're going to lose something, which is true if we have a stake in it. But if you don't have a stake in it, our only purpose is to serve, then whether the circumstances are favorable or unfavorable, we just go on serving. And we tolerate the various inconveniences of the material nature. We should know ahead of time that the material nature is unlimitedly inconvenient. And if we accept that, and then we maintain steadiness in the practice of the transcendental vibration, which is a non-sectarian way in which to connect to the Supreme. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Narada Muni says, Iti murtyabhidanena mantra murtima murtikam yajite yagya purusha sasamyag darshana puman. That the sound vibration, which is transcendental, the names of the Supreme, as an example, are the form. They contain the form, and there is also the pastimes, are called the lila. and the qualities, everything's there. And Narada says it's the non-troublesome way of connecting with the Supreme. Because the word murti means form, and it also means difficulty. Does anybody have a Sanskrit dictionary? We could get one and start the research on the Sanskrit words. You don't have to get it right now unless it's there. But probably there's a good electronic one. You can figure out which one that Hridayanath Maharaj uses when he gives lectures. He looks up words all the time. Someone could research that, and then we'll get that. So murti means difficulty, and it also means form. So the way that our previous acharyas, namely Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, explains it, according to Srila Prabhupada, is amurtikam means that without difficulty you can see the form of the Supreme. How? By repeating the name. And what will that experience be? Will it be partial? No. He says it is the full experience, direct and full. So the process of Krishna consciousness is primarily about hearing and then chanting. So we hear the sound vibration that's channeled from the spiritual world, and that then after hearing it, then we repeat it. And the more that we're able to fill our time with hearing and chanting, that the more our consciousness improves. Cheto darpanam arjanam means the consciousness becomes purified by the cleansing process, which happens to be the touch of transcendental sound. So let's sing this next song, this very esoteric song. Practically, it should be done very carefully here in Silicon Valley. And we remember that these are very intimate names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that we're singing. And nobody else at this hour on a Saturday morning in Silicon Valley, except maybe a devotee or two, tucked away in an apartment somewhere, is singing this, but everyone else is snoozing away. Let's do 3. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Give a mic to Anshu. One more mic to Anshu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Everybody now, together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. Sixth canto, chapter 10, Changed My Mind. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the story of Vritrasura. This is an important story. It's in the original Vedas, original Veda, a discussion of Vritrasura who became a troublesome force in the universe. There are three modes of material nature that rule the material world. And due to their combinations and permutations, there are various bodies and atmospheres created in the world. Krishna describes Tribir Gunamayer Bhaver Ebisarvam idam jagat Mohitam Nabijanati Mamebhya Paramavyayam. 7th chapter Bhagavad Gita. Thank you. No, I'll keep it. No, take it. Thank you. And so he describes, does Krishna, that people are bewildered by these modes and they think that actually there's, I have a connection to the material world. However, the Veda says, Asango hyayam purushaha. Surprise, you don't have anything to do with the material world. There's nothing for you to see here, nothing for you to drink here that will satisfy you. There's nothing at all here that's of ultimate value to the spiritual soul, because the matter of which this material world is made is inferior, it's grosser than we are, and therefore we can't ultimately appreciate it. It causes an incongruent situation for the spiritual self. However, we may have found ourselves, as I think is the case, ensconced in matter. Please look up at the word ensconce. It means that I think that we're surrounded by it. Did you ever notice that? Surrounded? Only Srivas Pandit Prabhu noticed it. Okay, and Radhakripa Prabhu. Two people noticed that we're ensconced by matter. Risheshwari Leela. It's important to notice that we're ensconced in matter. It's one of the first ways in which one starts to develop a sense for trying to reach higher ground in consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada describes how when we feel frustration, it's because of the dichotomy between us and the material nature, us meaning the spiritual soul. And this is given very clear definition in the Bhagavad Gita, which is an important book to study to understand the groundwork for spiritual practice. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarve kshetru shubharata kshetrajnayor jnanam yatach jnanam matambama. And that is that actual learning, and a learned person is one who can objectify matter and notice that I'm different from it. And that especially goes for the material body, because it's the thing that we're riding around in right now. And Krishna uses helpful vocabulary, phraseology in this verse where he says that he refers to the body as a kshetra, or a field of activity. And if you can imagine being in an agrarian situation and you have a field in which you make with which you make your livelihood, and you spend your day in the field, then you can see that you're not the field. It's just something that you're using for the time being. And the body is a similar instrument, is similarly an instrument. And one who can see the difference between themselves and the body. I was told by my editor it's okay to use the neutral pronoun these days. I was very surprised. But he actually insisted upon it, so I'm starting to use it, so don't mind. Decided to mention. So the person notices that they are not their body. I wouldn't normally, anyway, forget it. That they're not their body, and sees that I'm something different from matter. One can become aware that one is consciousness and not matter. And one may do that systematically by noticing that I say my hand as an example. I don't say I hand. And we may notice also that I'm not my mind either. The mind is a reservoir of various thoughts and ideas. And in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna asks Krishna, what are the symptoms of somebody who's entering into self-realization? Krishna says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atman yevatmana tushta stita pragnas tadochite. So Krishna calls a person who's entering into self-realization stita. They're situated. It's cognate in English with stand. You have a place to stand, or you have an understanding. Stita pragnas tadochite means that the person has a clear understanding of this, a particular situation, a phenomena, which is as follows. Prajahati yada kaman. First of all, they have developed the wherewithal to not chase after the various offerings of the mind. So what Krishna is saying is the mind produces various desires or suggestions for enjoyment. Have you ever noticed that? Like you're chanting your japa, and then the mind says, why don't you go on Amazon Prime and order the following? Because you'd need that for good japa, and so forth. And the mind constantly is doing that and offering various suggestions based on our previous association. If we've had association with people who really like organic food, then we'll start liking it. If we associate with people who like I won't go into details, but you get the idea. There's various people in the world who have various lifestyles, and by association, Krishna says in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Purusha prakriti stohi bhunte prakriti jangunan karanam gunasangosya sarasad yoni janmasu. We pick things up. In fact, the soul in a material body is vulnerable to picking up just about anything. So much so that you may have noticed people who have an opinion about something, and then you see them later and then they change their opinion. It's 180 degrees opposite, and you say, hey, wait a minute, what happened to you? And there's a phenomenon nowadays where it's been labeled radicalization. Some people are perfectly reasonable, and then they get association with those who are perhaps unreasonable or fanatical, and then they become fanatical. So Krishna says this is because of sangha, or association, we pick up these types of ideas. And that will produce a sequence of various desires to fulfill one's particular ideal in life. And the mind's like a conveyor belt, a little factory. It's creating all these little desires, and they come out in boxes like Amazon Prime. It's like on the conveyor belt, this, that. So Krishna says a person who is stita, situated solidly in self-realization, has a sense of happiness from within, from knowing that I'm consciousness. Atman yevatmana tushta. Tushta means satisfaction. And where does the satisfaction come from? It comes from Atma. Atman yevatmana. The person knows that I'm a soul. I'm conscious being, and there's actual pleasure in just being and being aware. And then step by step knowing my relationship with my source, who's the supreme Atma. And in this realm of consciousness, one feels tushta, or satisfaction, so much so that they are not enticed by the various offerings of the mind and can stand back and say, yes, that's what the mind does. It's a factory. It just runs, but I'm not attached to it. So this is one of the first signs of self-realization. Ensconce for 10 points.
Ensconce is a verb from the 1580s to cover with a fort, from en, make or put in, and ensconce, small fortification shelter.
A little fortification. We try to take shelter of matter. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita are telling us that's not a very good fort. It's not a place where you're going to find protection. In fact, Shukadeva Goswami makes this clear in the beginning of his teachings to Parikshit Maharaj, when he says that the institutions and the entities we take full shelter of, we become ensconced in this material world, are fallible. He calls them fallible soldiers. That we may think that they're protecting us, but they'll fail us in the end. So, a wise person then has a different set of values. And in the story in the Srimad Bhagavatam of a devotee, or actually a king, he was a king, and there are many stories of kings in the Srimad Bhagavatam. One of the reasons our acharyas, or the prominent teachers of bhakti from antiquity and up to the present, have said that people in general follow the leader. I was fascinated by many of the ant hives. Is it a hive for ants? Or only for bees? Is it an ant hill? Ant colony. How civilized is that? I always had great respect for ants, and they have colonies, like a gated community. There were lots of ants for me to observe in Italy. I was watching those ants, and now I forgot my point. What was I going to say? Yeah, follow the leader. Thank you, Prabhu. So, follow the leader. I read up on ants while I was watching them, and the queen doesn't work that much. She just hangs out, and the little ants bring her stuff all day long, and they work much harder throughout the day. And most of them, they don't rest that much either. They only sleep sometimes they take 10-minute snaps. They kind of nod out, and then they go, okay, I got to work more for the queen. So people generally work. So there's a sense in human society also of a leader. And in Vedic society, there were, for the most part, pious kings until Kali Yuga got going, and then the leadership got degraded, and that was the problem. It's a problem nowadays too. We might have noticed. So Chitraketu was a good king, but he had a problem. And this is one of the main points that the acharyas make, is kings have problems. So if kings have problems, you will too. Because people think, well, live like a king. Actually, nowadays, everyone lives better than kings. Kings didn't have indoor plumbing. Not that that's the best thing in the world, but I noticed that in some places you turn one lever and hot water comes out. Kings didn't have that. They had to have somebody bring it to them. And how about AC? Do any of you have air conditioning in your car? Kings didn't have that. They didn't have air conditioning in their palaces either. They had to have somebody stand there and fan them. We go down the list, but they didn't have a Cuisinart. They didn't have, what's the best blender called? Vitamix. Sorry, anybody, if I offended any better brands. Kings didn't have Vitamix. They had some, crew chopping stuff up, and many of them didn't even have spices. That's one of the reasons people were looking for India, like Columbus. It's like they wanted spices, which were more valuable than gold at that time. In any case, Chitraketu was a king, but he was unhappy. So that's a cue right there. He was an unhappy king. So you think, you're a king, you control everything, you have all the money, so you should be happy. But he wasn't. Why wasn't he happy? Because there was something he wanted, and that's the problem. In the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami distinguishes three classes of people. So he says that there's Vaishnavas, there's those who want liberation, and then those who want to enjoy the material world. Three choices. So people who want to enjoy the material world are kind of like, there was a comic strip in America called Charlie Brown, or Peanuts. And in it, there were these iconic figures. One was Charlie Brown, the other was Lucy. So Lucy used to tempt Charlie Brown to kick football. In American football, everybody, you hold the football and you try to kick it through the uprights, and then you score points. And every time Charlie Brown would come running for the football, she would pull it out, and Charlie Brown would kick at it at nothing and then fall on his head. And every time she'd tempt him, he'd say, "Oh no, I remember last time." And then she'd say, no, this time's different. And then he'd go for it, and he would land on his head. And so this is what happens with material endeavor. Each time it beckons to us and says, this time will be different. However, every time we go for it, we whiff, which means you swing at the air, you don't hit anything, and you've come falling on your head. So that's material enjoyment. And then liberation is also a kind of desire to get free from misery. And that doesn't work either, because the Srimad Bhagavatam explains our nature is anandamayo vyasat. It's not that we just want to be free from misery. We also want positive engagement. We want variety. Variety is the mother of enjoyment. But the material variety doesn't do it for us because it's temporary. It keeps changing. It's called bhava. Bhava means everything that you know right now is becoming something else. Everyone you're attached to is becoming someone else. Every item you've purchased on Amazon Prime is becoming something else. It's becoming, what's that physical law that everything degrades? Entropy. Who said that? Someone with a mask, with a really thick mask on. It must be you. Hare Krishna. Entropy falls apart. So then that person, they're not happy either. They can't stay in a position of suspension from material variety. They have to come back at some point. But the devotees are happy because they only want to please Krishna. And this is the position of a living entity in which they are happy, and that is in service to Krishna. So Chitraketu was unhappy because he wanted something, and he wanted a son, but he couldn't get a son. So he tried and tried and tried, and there were mystics walking around at that time of the universe who had great yogic powers. And when he met one of them, he said, and the mystic has said, "How are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm a king, but I'm not happy." "Mystic, what can I do for you?" And he said, "I need a son." Because kings want sons to pass on the kingdom to. And they have the sense that we're a dynasty, we have to keep the name going. This happens even in our non-kingly arenas as well. And so the mystic said, "Yeah, we can do that." He looked at his Apple Watch and said, "It's possible, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to get a son. I can arrange it, but according to your karma, he's going to be the source of happiness and distress." And King Chitraketu said, "Well, that's no big deal because everything's like that." And, kids, they can be a little unruly or maybe not obey me. So I understand. It's not a big deal. So he accepted that for the sake of chasing his heartfelt desire that I want to have a son. So the mystic did some special process through which one of the king's wives, and at that time, the kings had many wives. One of them could get pregnant, and she did, and had a child. And then, as the child was being nurtured as a little, not even a toddler, but just as a baby in the crib, the other queens became envious because the king obviously now had more affection for the queen who had given birth than he did for all the other queens. And they were overcome with envy, so much so that they conspired and they poisoned the little baby. And when the queen, who was the mother, and the king found out about it, they were disconsolate. And the description of their grief in finding out that their heartfelt desire, which came in the form of a son, was now vanquished, put them in such a state that the king could not remain conscious. That's heavy suffering. That's, you come to awareness and then you think this is too painful and you just get knocked out because you just can't even deal with it. Actually, I would argue that that's what most people contend with throughout their entire lives, as the prospect of so much misery that they try to distract themselves in various ways, which is kind of like being unconscious anyway. The unconsciousness of not facing reality. And in fact, there's a psychologist who wrote a book about his theory that every human activity is a distraction from the ultimate destination, which is death. Sorry, everybody, I know you just, it's a morning show. We should be a little more bright and chipper, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But facing reality in accounting is much better than just stuffing it and waiting till later, till someone calls you and says, hey, wait a minute, where's all that going? So this is the king's teachable moment. And in the lifetime of any person, we may get an opportunity for a teachable moment. Normally, I think, I got this. I'll cover it because I have insurance. How many kinds of insurance are there? Well, at least 25, because that's where I stopped counting when I wrote an article about it, 25 different kinds of insurance. Oh, that'll cover it, no problem. We'll get around this one. And there are various ways in which I try to buffer myself from the various reversals of fortune in the world. However, when one comes to the raw experience that actually I can't get out of this one. Gajendra had it. He was an elephant who got captured by a crocodile. He had been a king in his previous life, got cursed to become an elephant, and then in his next life he got captured by a crocodile, and then he fought for 100 years and then realized I can't win, and then he thought I can't get out of this, and that's when he had a teachable moment. So Chitraketu had his teachable moment. Normally everyone thinks, I already know that, I understand it, I'm going to get out of it, there's some other way. But when we come to the point of saying there's no way out of this, we have an existential crisis and we realize how helpless we are. So that's what happened to Chitraketu. And at that time, the mystic who had granted him a son through his mystic power came back with a friend because they needed now to give some solace to the king. They knew what was going to happen, and the king, of course, insisted anyway, even though they warned him, or he warned him. But then two sages came back to console the king. And what is the only consolation? Consolation. At a time like that, the only solace, and that is to hear Atma Tattva Gyan. To have somebody tell you, first of all, you're not the supreme controller, so that you just have to tolerate these things, and also you're not your body. So ultimately you're not involved. This is something going on that's superfluous to you. That's music to the ears of somebody who's suffering and who has an open ear. So Chitraketu had an open ear at that time, and the two sages came back and gave Atma Tattva Gyan. And Chitraketu took it. He took it wholeheartedly. So this is the secret to spiritual advancement. If I dabble and I think, well, I'll keep 80% in the material world, 20% into spiritual practice. No. 50-50? No. 60-40? No. 70-30? How about 98 and 2%. 2% for the material world, 98% for spiritual life. What do you think? It's still a crack. A little crack turns into a bigger crack. But if you're 100% in, and you say 100%, no more optimism that the material world's going to work out for me, I'll be dutiful, I'll be methodical, I'll be affectionate towards all in my relationships, but I have a higher perspective, and that is this life is meant for advancing spiritually. There is no other track for me, even as one is expert in dealing with the material world simultaneously. When that resolve comes into the heart, and it did for Chitraketu, then there's no stopping anyone. There is no obstacle when one's inner resolve has reached 100%. 98%, there's a crack. And you know what? And this is a revelation I think you'll appreciate. I know I do. And that is, it's easier at 100% than it is at 98. Because when that 2% is on the side and I know it's hidden somewhere and I have to maintain it, then I'm always of two minds. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, it gives this formula, Vyavasayatmaka buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hyanantashta buddhayo vyavasayinam. He said, for those who are 100%ers, who wants to be in the 100% club? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. For those who are in the 100% club, he said, no problem. Your mind is fixed and steady. For those who are at 98%, then he says, Bahu shaka hyanantascha, which means chase 2 rabbits, catch neither of them. So if you're going after 2 things, you're not going to catch either. You're like, and therefore, one has to come to this point of 100%. I've decided that I am a spirit soul. I don't want anything to do with the material world, although I'll be expert in it and I'll be affectionate towards those whom I'm related with. I won't be artificially cold or antisocial. Nonetheless, inside, I'll nurture this 100%. And this is the greatest wealth of any living entity, to come to 100%. And join the 100% club. And you can sign up. Our lines are open 24 hours a day at 1-800. Surrender now. You send a little form, you can check off the box. I'm in the 100% club. And it's like you can then relate to others who are in the 100% club. And then you don't have any problem, really, because externally anything may happen, but then you have this oasis within yourself where you say, that's all right, because I'm already in the 100% club, and there's no stake in it for me here in the material world. I'm just passing through and doing the best I can with what I have here in this material world. That happened to Chitraketu. Then Chitraketu was fully open for the instruction of the sages. And they told him about his relationship with the spiritual world and with the Supreme, who's a person. And otherwise, how are you going to have a relationship? And then they gave him the means. So the first thing was sambandhagyan, or information about you do have a relationship in another place. And then the second part is called abhideya, which means knowledge of how to get there, how to enact the relationship. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, in a general way, na rupamasyeha tatopa labhyate nanto na chadir na chasampratishta ashvatamenam savrudamulam asanga shastrena dritena chitva tatakpadam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gata na nirvatanti bhuya tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatak pravriti prashita purani. Which means that you're really wrapped up in the material world, and the material world is called vriksha. In Sanskrit, vriksha means tree, and it also means that which will soon be cut down. And he says, learn how to cut the tree yourself by asanga, by non-identification with your material body or with anything in relationship with your body, including your hometown. Oh. And he said, once you've cut down the tree yourself, now you're free to go, free to move about the cosmos, and you can go on the pathway. You're now eligible to follow the pathway that goes all the way back to the spiritual world. Parimargitavya means you can go on a journey now because you're no longer encumbered by your attachment to the material world. Sangashastrena jini tatakpadam tat. So tat means that. Om tad Vishnu paramam haram sada pashanti surayo divivachakshat tanta vipraso vipanyavo jagravamsaha saminda te Vishnuya paramam padam. Those who have disassociated themselves with the idea that I'm the material body, I belong in the material world, now they're here, they're walking around, but they're aiming this way toward tat. Tat means that which is reality. It's a demonstrative pronoun, like it's actually the same word in English, that. You can point to somebody, something, or someone and say, or something, and say that. That drum is there. And that's same as tat. So Om Tat Vishnu Paramam Padam means that that's where I'm going. I'm on this journey going back home, back to Godhead. So Chitraketu took instruction, and the process for reestablishing his relationship with the Supreme, and in this case his deity, worshipable deity, was Sankarshana, Balaram. And his guru gave him a mantra. So this is a stage at which one comes to the determination that I'm going to dedicate myself to spiritual practice. Then Krishna will reveal a guru, and one of the gurus is someone who will give instruction and say, it's that, it's not this. And then that guru or another guru will give you a mantra. A mantra is called Divyamyanum, which means it's a little package, sound package, that has all you need to reestablish your relationship with the Supreme Deity, and also to go there. It's all contained in this neat little package. And the Diksha Guru, well, Diksha means Divyamyanum. You're giving something and you're taking something away. You're taking away the past obligations to the material world, and you're giving Divyamyanum, or spiritual knowledge, through which you can reach the destination. So Chitraketu got that, and he started to chant his mantra, and he was successful within a very short amount of time. Was it 1 week? 1 week. 1 week's time, he attained complete perfection, and it's called Mantra Siddhi. Is she here? Mantra Siddhi is here somewhere. So Mantra Siddhi, he attained Mantra Siddhi, which then so does it take, how long did it, there's Mantra Siddhi. Say Haribol. So how long does it take to achieve Mantra Siddhi? Well, that depends. Depends on one's... I'm on this journey going back home, back to Godhead. So it's an example of what I was talking about. So he attained perfection very quickly because of his dedication to the mantra. This shows how powerful the process is when we're fully invested in it. So Chitraketu then attained his own state of perfection in the same body as a king, and he was biding his time here in the material world. He was actually flying around in a celestial airplane with a bunch of singers from the higher planetary systems. That's what you do when you're biding your time. Fly in an airplane and have a bunch of celestial singers. And he happened to come across the place where Lord Shiva was sitting with Parvati, and there were sages sitting around them, and Parvati was sitting on Lord Shiva's lap, and Chitraketu just thought it was a kind of humorous situation. Here's Shiva, who's so renounced that he doesn't wear clothes. He's not into the latest style. Have you ever been bothered by this, the latest style? It's like, how come I don't have that? And he didn't have that problem. He just wore ashes from the crematorium to remind himself that, oh, this will be my clothes to remind me that this material world's temporary. So, and he's always like that. He's a powerful controller, but at this particular event, Parvati was sitting on his lap, and there were other sages around, and Shiva was holding forth and speaking about spiritual knowledge. And Chitraketu, from the vantage of his airplane, said, "Ha ha!" He just laughed a little bit. And Parvati, the wife of Lord Shiva, took umbrance at that, and she became a little indignant and said, "Who do you think you are? This is Shiva, who are you?" And she made a curse at Chitraketu and said, "So if you're going to be like that, then you should fall from your position and become a demon." And after he uttered the curse, Shiva said, "Wait, what? What did you just do? That's a pure devotee that you just talked to." And Chitraketu got off his airplane, he got on his knee and folded palm before Parvati and said, "I accept your curse." And then Lord Shiva said, "Narayana parak sarvena kutaschana bhibyati, swarga pavarga narakeshu apitulyarti darshana." Said, "Just see, Parvati and everybody else, this is the nature of a Vaishnav. A Vaishnav doesn't care heaven, hell. This is this word, Narayana parak sarve. If somebody is fully invested internally, 100% club, and nakutashana bibhiti, there's no more fear for such a person, because the only fear we have is the fear of losing that which we think we have, and we don't have anything. Swarga means heaven. Pavarga narakeshu, naraka means hell. So the universe has got higher planets, lower planets. And Lord Shiva said, for a Vaishnava, it doesn't matter if he's in heaven or hell. He could be at San Francisco State or Stanford, doesn't care. Either way, it's equal. Tulyarta means, that one didn't go over too well. Hey, I went to San Francisco State, so it's okay. It's tulya, it's equal in any situation, because they have no motive to get something from heaven or avoid hell. It's all service to the Vaishnav. Apitulya to darshana, equal to such a person. So it was an example, and Shiva was pointing it out to Parvati and said, "I think you made a mistake here. You got a little agitated for no reason." Nonetheless, Chitraketu accepted the curse, and he became, in his next life, he became a Vritrasura, who, as I mentioned, is a famous demon. He was so big and powerful, everyone was afraid of him. However, there was a slight mistake in the creation of this demon. He came from a yajna in which the father of Twashta had wanted to get revenge on Indra, because Indra killed his son. It gets a little complicated. I won't go into all that detail, or maybe I will. But in any case, Twashta did this yajna, and yajna means, it's a very interesting process. Yajna actually is a scientific way. You create a channel that pulls energy from the universe or from higher planetary systems. We have experience with here with, we'd have to ask Sri Kumar Prabhu, he's an expert in satellite technology, and there's radar and things like that. We have subtle laws through technology, even cell phones, that have to be perfectly configured, you know all about this, in order to capture certain kinds of information and transpond it outwardly. The fire yajna was the technology of that time, through which, with a geometrically perfect configuration, and then the mantras, which are subtle forms, they're like software that run the whole thing, and then there's this connection that one makes and pulls down the higher powers of the universe and connects with the devas, who are the overseers of these various powers of the universe. He was able to, through his mantra, create this demon, only he made a mistake in the coding. You can relate, right? Made a little mistake. Yeah, actually, we had a Silicon Valley entrepreneur tell us about, he was one of the original pioneers of RAM. Is it RAM? RAM? And he was showing how in some of the original drawings, he had some of the original drawings and how they were off by a very small fraction, and therefore they were leaking information. And so he's saying they have to be perfect and so forth. So also in the utterance of mantras at that time, one had to be precise. And Twashta, or the priest who did it for Twashta, had uttered a mantra not precisely, sounds funny, but he had done it errantly. And therefore, he didn't get the demon that he wanted. He got a demon of whom Indra was the enemy, instead of the demon being the enemy of Indra, because he reversed one syllable. So the demon came out and then was on a mission to kill Indra. So now the demigods, or the devas, had a conundrum, and that was there was a huge demon hanging around who wanted to kill their leader. So they went to Vishnu to find out how to counteract this. And he told them about a sage named Didichi or Didichi or Danacha Muni, who was such a powerful sage. He had already achieved complete self-realization, so much so that he didn't identify with his body. And furthermore, he had fortified himself, not just his consciousness, but his entire body was fortified with a mantra called the Narayana Kavacha. So it's a mantra through which you put on a protective armor, and it penetrates your whole body, so you become impervious to the material nature. And what Vishnu said was that if you go to him, you can ask him for a little donation. So you can try this door to door. What's the donation? They needed his body to make a weapon. And Vishnu said, don't worry, he's self-realized, so he'll hand it over, but he may entertain you a little bit before he gives the donation. So you could try going door to door and say, well, how much do you want? Say, well, Didichi Muni, he gave his body. So you give whatever you like. Anything after that is substandard, sir. So they asked to the demigods, Didichi Muni, we have this mission. And Didichi already knew. And he said, I know what's going on here. And he said, yeah, but don't you know that it's really hard when you ask people for big donations like that? Because don't you know that when you give up your body, it's very painful? And they said, yeah, we know all that. And Didi said, that's all right. I was just asking to see if you're aware of it, and I'm happy to donate my body. And he says, does Didichi, that actually every human being should realize that you're here temporarily and your body can be repossessed at any time. They don't even have to tell you. They just have to have a little warrant, and they come and hook on a tow truck and tow it away. We're in a tow zone right now. Did you know that? And anytime somebody can pull up, it's the most unceremonious thing that can actually happen. In fact, I once had my car towed in San Francisco, and you can ask my wife for verification, but I didn't go back to San Francisco for several years because I was so miffed, because the sign was ambiguous, and I had to go down and get my car, and it's called insult to injury. Not only that I was inconvenienced for the rest of the day, but then they wanted some exorbitant amount for dragging my car backwards and putting it in an impound. So if you think that's bad, wait till you get the tow truck that comes and says, we're taking the body back. So this is what Didichi said. He said, it's already going to be towed away. So the best thing to do is use your body, give it as an offering to Vishnu. Do the best thing. Use your whole body. Be in the 100% club and use all your resources for Vishnu. Don't leave 2% on the table. It'll mess you up one way or another. You have to come back for it. If you're being chased by a tiger across the river and you're carrying some gold with you, you chuck it and try to swim as fast as you can. Otherwise, you'll drown. So that's what Didichi did, and the demigods, through one of their high-tech engineers, took the body, the bones, and turned it into this thunderbolt weapon that Indra had, through which he could kill the big demon Vrtrasura. However, there was a problem, because Indra had low self-esteem. Everyone please say Gauranga. Hare Krishna. This is the numbers of people watching. And there's a lot. Thank you for tuning in. Let's please thank our viewing audience from around the world. So Indra was in a position now that it was his duty to lead the devas, the demigods, into a battle with Vritrasura, who is formidable, so much so that he could open his mouth and swallow huge numbers of soldiers. His body seemed to be impenetrable, and it was. So there was a way in which only Indra could kill him, but he wasn't fully confident, Indra, that he could do it because he had thrown one of his weapons, a club, to hit Vritrasura, and it was about as effective as throwing a flower garland at an elephant. And not only that, Vritrasura took the club and threw it back, like flung it, like insignificantly, but it came back so fast, it hit Indra's elephant, Airavata, and knocked him back 14 yards and also injured his jaw. So Indra now felt that maybe I'm not strong enough to do this. But it was Vritrasura. Now remember, he's got a demon body, but he's Chitraketu from his previous life, and he's actually a Vaishnav. This carries forward. Krishna talks about it in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He says that if you make advancement in devotional service in this life, but you don't make far enough, you get forward progress. You'll take a rebirth in a place where you'll be reminded at a certain point of all the progress you made in your last life. You might come out of the womb and the parents are standing there going, Hare Krishna, your name's Gopal. And, you just you're born with a pair of kartals in your hand, or the whole transcendental sound vibration. That's an indication, Krishna says, that you've done this before, and now you're taking it up again in the next life. And so Vritrasura, although he was apparently a demon, in his heart, he was a fully dedicated, 100% devotee. So this is the topsy-turvy nature of this world, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the first to point it out. It begins, does the Srimad Bhagavatam, with the statement, Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. This book goes right to the truth, and the truth is that what's important in life, savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktirat hoksaje, ahaitukya pratyata yayatma suprasidati, is this essential ingredient, which is the 100% dedication to serving Krishna. And if you have that, then you've got everything. It doesn't matter what your body is. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are. And this is the perfect example, and that is Vritrasura. He was apparently the worst thing that ever happened to the world. He was an ugly demon. Apparently, externally, he was horrendous. Nonetheless, in his heart, he held this sense of pure devotional service. And therefore, when Indra withheld his thunderbolt, it was Vritrasura who protested and said, no, you should throw it. And you should try to kill me. Because number one, he knew that being killed by the weapon that had been suggested by Vishnu would immediately liberate him and take him back to the spiritual world. And therefore, he didn't care about winning or losing in the material world. And this is much to the point. Those who are dedicated to the order of the Supreme don't mind what the reversals of fortune apparently are, the apparent reversals of fortune are here in this world. And therefore, they just dedicate themselves to the order of the Supreme. And that's what Vritrasura did. And he had to encourage Indra to kill him, which he finally did through the power of the thunderbolt weapon. And we can take this instruction of instructions from this story. One of them is about teachable moments and taking advantage of them. And another is the dedication to the particular spiritual practice that's given to us through our guru. And when we're dedicated to that, we'll make rapid advancement. or I should say, the more dedicated we are, the more rapid advancement we'll make. And finally, is we should always look for the essence in ourselves and in others, which is, where is that sentiment of pure dedication to the Supreme? Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much. And now we'll take some reflections or questions. Yes, Prabhu.
Maharaj, thank you very much, Maharaj. Very beautiful story. I think you were alluding to it earlier about first time I heard the story from Srimad Bhagavatam. It was very enlightening because Krishna teaching through a demon who is horrendous. Pure devotion is quite amazing. Whereas on the other hand, from Vedas we only hear negative things about Vritrasura, which is quite interesting. Maharaj, one question I have is this 100% club. When we come here, sit here in Bhagavatam class, we feel like, yes, I want to sign up. But somehow as the modes weave into our lives and as the week progresses, we slowly go into 50% club and eventually maybe to 2% club. So any comments, suggestions on how we can avoid and help ourselves?
Well, Krishna says in the Srimad Bhagavatam that we may, even as we approach this feeling of 100%, we may be in contention with the momentum of our previous activities. So in the verse he says, Jata Shraddha Makatasu. Maybe you could put it up. Jata Shraddha Makatasu Nirvana Sarvakarmasu Veda Dukkha Makang Kamams Prityagi Pyanyishvara, which means that even after this sense of faith in the process has awakened, and even after one has this sense that sense gratification and my involvement in the material world in an optimistic way for getting some permanent residence is a cause of suffering, Prityagi Pyanyishvara, I still may not be able to give it up because I don't have the power yet. Ishvara means the controller, it also means the power to do something. So I may not have the wherewithal to do it. So then he says, from this stage, you should just keep going, because gradually the two aspects of our life one will outweigh the other. In the beginning, they're like on a pan scale. One is outweighing the other, and it moves back and forth. In fact, this is exactly the commentary that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives on the verse, Sarvadharman Parityaja Mamekam. No. Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sadureva samantavyasam yag vyavasito hisa. And that is that someone may be a sadhu, and that is they have that sense of 100%, but still somehow or other they're being influenced by the other part of their life, which is that I've had association with the material modes of nature, and I'm getting pressure. I'm getting phone calls, texts, they're coming in from my other life. And he says that in the beginning, the sense of pure devotion may be outweighed by the sense of my optimism for the material world. And he says this is what it means, sudaracharo. May have a get overwhelmed from time to time with a sense of worldliness. He says, but as one goes on practicing devotional service, and this is exactly what Krishna says in the verse, after Apichet Sudachara, he says, Shri Prambhavati Dharmatma Shashvash Chantim Nagachati Konteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakti Pranashati, that don't worry if you keep going. As you keep going, you're going to come to the perfectional stage. And that's what he's saying in this verse also. Tato bhajetamam prita shradalur drida nishjaya jushamanas tatankaman tukodarkam shjagariyan. You may regret it a little bit that you're not fully there yet, he said, but just keep going because you're very dear to me because you're practicing, and soon all that will come into balance. And I think that even devotees, when they do have this sense of being overwhelmed by the material world, they have still in the core of their hearts, the ideal that it should be at 100%. And Prabhupada once said in a letter, the desire for pure devotional service is synonymous with pure devotional service. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, mixed devotional service also has an element of pure devotional service, because what's it mixed with? So we should always be looking for that. In fact, one of the games you can play when you chant japa is try to find that. Try to identify that where that 100% molecule is, and find it, and just, breathe into it. Give it oxygen, give it blood, because that's everything for the soul, is that sense that I'm 100% dedicated to Krishna. And if you can keep practicing for it, then Krishna will give you the wherewithal. And sometimes, as Prabhupada said, failure may be the pillar to success. Because oftentimes when we fail in our attempt to maintain devotional service at a certain level that we want it to be at, then we get to see the world from a different angle. Partly there's a way, and I was talking a lot to Satchidanand Maharaj about this, that we, even in the practice of devotional service, may maintain some sense of false identity. Like, we try to present ourselves to others in a particular way. And that's a lot of work. But when we're very vulnerable and real, and we're able to just be ourselves and sincere, be who we are, then there's a kind of power in that. And admitting one's faults, and then, I'll just put it like this, admitting one's faults gives one the wherewithal to overcome them eventually. Okay? Pavani Bhakti?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for this story. It was really nice. I really could really loved the point of the give your everything 100%, and it's like the full surrender, because Krishna is our only maintainer. We are not doing anything ourselves, anyways. So what is stopping us from giving him everything that we think it's ours? It's actually his. And it also reminded me that if we just cannot do it, how are these stories helping us? Because how the saints have done it, how Prabhupada has explained, how in this case Vritasura did it. It's so important to stay connected with our scriptures and keep reading them and reminding us of these examples. So thank you for reading this story today and sharing it in so much detail. And I just want to also share with you that Dr. Alan from Bhakti Community is here today. I've been so impressed. Yeah.
Hey, Alan.
So please. Yeah.
Great to see you, as usual. Thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure and a privilege, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Dr. Al is dedicated to a pure lifestyle, and he comes to all the Bhakti community classes front and center with powerful realizations and an enthusiastic attitude. And it's heartfelt to have you here in the class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And
is that, what kind of tree do you have there?
it's a very wise tree and very blessed. We meditate and practice a lot of yoga. It's I couldn't tell you the type, but it's provides beautiful shade in the summertime, and then will lose its leaves around January, and then it for a while has these little pockets of pollen, and for a while it'll just drop pollen for maybe 2 weeks out of the year with its seeds, and then the leaves come back, and it provides so many blessings. And so, yeah, a beautiful tree that we have back here. And I'd like to say also beautiful point, Maharaj, with the sense of being overwhelmed. You know, very applicable for one that's wanting to follow just a pure lifestyle and dedicate himself to the divine, like myself, you know, managing a practice really in the world. And so it's just a beautiful reminder this morning, and very, very close to home for myself, getting ready for a big trip and dealing with a lot of things, to remember, hey, it's not up to us. I'm not the controller. There's the supreme force that's guiding, and I just get to dedicate myself to that and keep doing my best and let go of that sense of I need to do it all. And I feel like that was very freeing. Almost it brought tears to my eyes because I caught myself in that humanity recently. So just thank you so much for that.
Sadhu, sadhu. Yeah, Alan, so much in the Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? Krishna's instructions about how to work in the world but not be contaminated by it. And when we come to the essence of his teaching, we find that it's really about our intention. Like the verse, Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyakva karotiya lipitena sapapena padmapatram ivambasa. Krishna says you can live in the world and not be contaminated by it, just as a lotus can live in the water but not be touched by the water, if you have the right internal motive. And that is tyakva Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyakva karotiya, that you don't claim proprietorship over the results of your activities. And as you were just so aptly saying, that it's a dedication, and you realize there's a higher power, I have a higher purpose, and even as you do work expertly in the world, as is necessary to maintain the body and relationships and so forth, one who maintains that internal motivation, that person's never actually touched by the material energy, because that's where we touch it with our intention, that, oh, that's mine, I want that. I was thinking the other day about this idea of mamaka. It's what starts the Bhagavad Gita. Why is the war taking place? It's because Dhritarashtra, the blind king, says, this is my stuff, these are my people. And that starts the whole problem. I claim ownership, I want to control it. And once I have that, a tinge of that, then I have a problem. I have a great burden on my head. But what's the solution? We can't renounce the material world because it's not ours in the first place to renounce, but we can dedicate it all to Krishna and say it's for service, as you're saying, Alan. Thank you very much. Have a nice trip. Where are you going, if I might ask?
We're going up the coast of California, over to San Diego, and then right through your guys' neighborhood, and going to be receiving the transcendental vibrations, and Krishna willing, may even meet up and get to meet some of this beautiful family that I've experienced. Yeah, Krishna.
We'll keep the lights on.
Please do.
Please do stop by, and if you're passing through and you're in a hurry, we can arrange for somebody to make some to-go containers for you. So if you just pull off the 101 on a rest stop, we'll just deliver it and you can keep going.
Put the window down and we'll
yeah, really, I'm serious though. There's a lot of expert cooks here, and according to whatever your diet is, we can make something and give it to you as you're traveling.
It would be a huge blessing.
So maybe Pavani Bhakti can follow up on that, and we'll see what we can do. Not see what we can do. We will do.
Oh, that's a blessing. Thank you, Maharaja. Krishna's wife has already blessed us with some ladus for the first time. I've got to, same day shipped them, and it's been such a blessing. So thank you.
Yeah, that used to be one of my services, is eating ladus. I've retired, but when I was younger and I could eat more than anybody I knew, I was traveling with a sannyasi when I was a brahmachari, and we were going to various Indian homes, and they wanted us to eat. That was the main thing that we had to do. And my sannyasi leader couldn't eat. He was very restricted, so he said, here's my designated eater. And they were telling me, these pious people, that Brahmins were judged by how many ladus they could eat. Are you a 7 ladu Brahmin, or you a 10 ladu Brahmin? And I was more like a 15, 20. But let me repeat, I'm retired from that, sir. Okay, let's say we have 1 or 2 more points. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Such a beautiful lecture it was.
Thank you.
One reflection that I have is this point. It was a very powerful point you made based on your experience in SF. That in this material world, we are also in a tow zone. Anytime the body could be towed.
Yeah. Yeah, we can be towed, or ones that we're attached to can be towed, and that's the reality of it, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Maharaj, one question I had, I don't know the exact reference, but somewhere I came across this statement that Bhagavatam is often glorified as the book with Vritrasur's story. Could you please elaborate on that? Why is it glorified like that?
Well, first, it would be nice to see the verse. It sounds familiar, but I couldn't point to a particular verse. Do you have it, Srivas? It's sometimes referred to as the book that glorifies Vritrasura. Well, one thing is what Prabhu already referenced, and that is Sham Jagannath Prabhu had said that there's a way in which, and Radhika Raman Prabhu mentioned this in his talk when he was here, and he talked about the Srimad Bhagavatam, that's in the original, I guess it's the Rig Veda, where Vritrasura appears. He's a horrible demon, and that's it. And Indra is the king of heaven, and therefore that's the dichotomy. There's the good guys and the bad guys. And Indra's the good guy. He's a deva. And Vritrasura is really like the worst guy ever. However, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, everything gets viewed through the lens of Savai Pum Samparo Dharmo. Where is there haituki, unmotivated and uninterrupted bhakti? And wherever it shows up, that's where it's glorified. And therefore, Vritrasura in the Srimad Bhagavatam is juxtaposed with Indra, and now Indra becomes actually the bad guy, and Vritrasura is the good guy. Why? Because Vritrasura has pure devotion, and Indra, although he's a devotee, he's still attached to his position in the material world. And that's one of the ways that the Srimad Bhagavatam points out the most important aspect of our lives, which is pure devotion. Prabhu. Srivas Pandit Prabhu.
And also in the Rig Vedas, it's mentioned in the sections where the offer to Indra is mentioned. So to glorify Indra as a killer of Vritrasura and to give a better awe and reverence to those who want to worship Indra, in that light it is given. It's like a rigged match, and I won it, but to my followers, I am the hero of that match, kind of thing.
In the Rig Veda.
In the Rig Veda.
I see. Thank you, Prabhu. We have Vaikuntha Nayaka coming to us from
Pranam, Guru
Mysore.
Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. How are things in Mysore?
Yeah, it could be better if you come down here for a second.
We're always thinking about it. We miss you and the whole family, and also being with you in Mysore. So we hope we can come back soon.
Jai Maharaj. Very quickly, I just wanted to extend that thought of where you contrasted the presentation of Vritrasura in the Vedas as opposed to how he is presented in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I think if I remember Radhika Raman Prabhu's seminar, he was just extending the thought that how Srimad Bhagavatam is a story compilation of stories of different rebels, if you can say so. Like actually, as per the Vedic culture, a son is supposed to obey his father. But then we have Prahlad Maharaj, who is opposing his father in Srimad Bhagavatam. The wife is supposed to listen to the husband, but we have the story of the wives of the Yagnik Brahmins who are actually telling that how they are actually more exalted. And he gave another example. I think the disciple is supposed to listen to the spiritual master, but then we have Bali Maharaj rejecting Shukracharya, right? And so I just thought I'll add this. And so how Srimad Bhagavatam is special, that so demon, it's a story of rebels. So yeah, just that I wanted to add.
Very well done. that really added a lot of dimension to it. Thank you, Vaikuntha. That's all Vaikuntha gets, just a little pitter-patter. Okay. Now let's just have a brief summary of what... Oh, yes, please.
Thank you, Maharajji. I just wanted to ask, initially when you started telling us about the story, before that you talked about how our association play a huge part in how we grow. And you gave an example of somebody being liberal and then being associated with fanatics. They tend to start leaning towards that thought process. And I was thinking that there are certain associations that are more easily impressionable, or it's easy. For example, it's easier to make somebody more of a fanatic than reversal of it. So why is it that there are certain associations that are more impressionable than others?
Well, this is a topic that comes up in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam at the very beginning, because Parikshit Maharaj asked the question of Shukadeva Goswami as guru, how is it that God is impartial? Because he says it seems like the devas get better responses from him than the demons do. So how is he being impartial? And the answer, it relates to the answer to your question, or is the answer to your question, and that is that Shukadeva Goswami says, God's impartial, but think of a classroom. If a student in a classroom applies themselves more and is more attentive, then they get more out of the teacher. And if some students are not attentive and they're absent much of the time and they have a bad attitude, then they're not able to take advantage. And so he makes this general point that we take in our association based on the modality that we've already established within ourselves. So Prabhupada mentions how the modes of nature, we speak of this very, freely, or I should say frequently, but what are they? They're these powerful forces, goodness, passion, and ignorance. And they accumulate, Prabhupada says, within the heart. And because of the combinations and permutations of those modes within our heart, the aggregate impels us to react to our environment in a certain way. In fact, we're attracted to certain things because of the state of our heart, and we're repelled by certain things because of the state of our heart. And if somebody's in the mode of ignorance, or they have that propensity in their heart, they're attracted to people who are in the mode of ignorance. So it's always the same conundrum, and that is that what is the state of my heart compared to well, it's not a conundrum, but I should say it's the same phenomena. We're taking in what attracts us mostly. So most people, because they're affected by the lower modes of nature, because that's what's available nowadays, they're prone to be attracted to those things that are passionate and ignorant, and not so much goodness. And it's also, you may have noticed that it's easier to get in shape than it is to stay in shape, like physically. It's like once you have a routine and you're psychologically ready to perform the austerity of being healthy and exercise and things like that, it's easier to stay that way. Unless if you let yourself go and then you have to make a comeback, it's a lot harder. Yes or yes? Yes. Thank you. So then, in a similar way, once one falls into the lower modes of material nature, it's harder to make a comeback. And therefore, people seem to tend to get stuck in those lower modes of nature, and they're kind of hard to come out of, And there's a reason for that. If it was really easy to overcome the stickiness, get unstuck, then we wouldn't learn the lesson so heavily. You ever noticed? It seems as if I touch something in the material world that I shouldn't have, and then it's inordinate how long it hangs around. The result of that hangs around. Has anybody ever noticed that? Yes. Like it was only, all he did at one time. It's like, yeah, but now you have to go to jail for a long time. And this is a classroom, and there's certain things you touch, and then you get burned by them. So how does that relate to your point? Well, just that, it takes a while to get out of jail, and you have to do your time and get purified. Of course, you can subvert that process by surrendering to Krishna and getting the association of pure Vaishnavas, because once you have powerful, good association, you can make rapid advancement. Look at Mrigari the hunter, who thought that it was a great idea to half-kill animals. He actually thought that was a good idea because he learned it from his father. That's where their family was at. And when he met Narada Muni, he was so impressed with with the purity of Narada Muni that very quickly he came to question his own livelihood, did the hunter, and also to give it up and then take up the process of devotional service. So with the help of pure devotees, we can advance. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy, which means that if you can get 1/14 of a second association with a pure devotee, then you can transform yourself. Om Tat Sat. Now we just need a really quick summary of what's happened this morning. What did we do? What did we win? Not just the class, but anything. What bhajans did we sing? What did we do? Just give it a quick summary.
This morning we started off with Make Japa Great Again, and then we went to Arti to greet the deities, and we sang a Guru Kripa...
Gurudev.
Gurudev Kripa Vindudya. And then we sang Ohe Vaishnava Thakur, Ujjvala Varna, and Viva Varishesha, and Jagannath Ashtakam. And then we also recited the 8th chapter of the and Upadeshamrita, and the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And then we had class.
Pretty lackluster morning program, right? I don't think we crammed enough in yet. All right, thank you very much. Good summary. Hari Bol. Okay, now we're going to perform a process of worship of a founder Acharya. We call Guru Puja. So we offer these prayers to our founder Acharya, and this is one of the main ways, as mentioned in the Shastra, if you find your ideal practitioner, a guru, and then you offer your service and your worship, then you'll advance in devotional service. So that's why we're going to do this next. And we can put all the seats away, and we'll meet back in 4.5 minutes. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Boo! Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpadurusha kripasindave vacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakode vaishnavini ki jai. Stay tuned, everyone. We're having singing and dancing next.
No, Mataji, those are fresh ones, yeah. Yeah. We don't have space to put it, so we keep it outside. Yeah, no worries, Mataji. You show me, Mataji. Yeah, next time, please. Yeah, maybe I will just put it in a box for Prabhupada after, then that way it is sincere. Yeah, sorry, Mataji. ಅದೆಡ್ತಿಟ್ಟು ಹೇಳಿ ಸುತ್ರ
आपका वेट करने लगा कैसे आपके हमेशा हमको याद करते हैं आपके पास एक दिन थे आपको बहुत याद करते हैं अच्छा इस बार मिलेंगे बल्कि सोचिए
Rama Rama Hare Hare. Okay, here's a prayer written by Raghunath Das Goswami, a prayer of gratitude for all the ways that he's been helped by his guru. Namashrestham manamapi shachiputram matra swarupam shirupam tasyagrajam urupurim maturim goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girvaramoho Radhika Madhavashtam Prapto Yasya Patita Kripaya Shri Gurun Tangatosmi Hey Guru Gyanadadina Bando Swananda Data Koranaika Sindo Vrindavana Sinahita Avatar Prasida Radha Pranaya Prachara Hey Dina Bando Kurunaika Sindo Guru Prasada Mai Manda Mudhe Raksha Paradhe Bahupapa Gadhe Tatpada Padmestu Matishta Krishna. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have obtained the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Shachi Mata, the association of Srila Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother Sanatan Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radha Kund and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Sri Radhika and Madhava in Vrindavan. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you are the giver of your own bliss, and you are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of fallen souls like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I am a dull fool and have committed hundreds of thousands of offenses. I have fallen into the dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy, so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet. Nam Shri Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Our only wish is to have our consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens our darkened eyes and fills our hearts with transcendental knowledge. He is our Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic and destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevalabha Shati Sadma Bando Mui Savadana Jahar Prasare Bhai Bhavato Viyaja Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Vakya Chitete Ko Diya Oikya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Ko Diya Oikya Charane Rakhi Eshe Utama Gati Sri Guru Charane Rakhi Eshe Utama Gati Jai Prachate Pure Sarvasha Je prasade pure sarva asha. Chakudan diloche jane jane papuse. Vidya gyan vere prakashito. Prema bhakti jaha hoite avidya vinasa jate. Prema bhakti jaha hoite avidya vinasa jate. Dere gai jahara charito. Dere gai jahara charito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Chanara Bandhu. Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Jivana Lokanath Lokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Dehamure Padachaya Ha Prabhu Koro Doya Dehamure Padachaya Baby Josh Kribhuvana Josh Kribhuvana Ha ha Prabhu Gora Doya De Amore Padachaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Namah Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyarishatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the monsoon is starting. This is the tune to start the monsoon season. And we can think of the black clouds coming in. And Madhavendra Puri, whenever he saw a black storm cloud come in, he would faint because he would remember Shyamasundara and the beautiful body of Krishna. So this rag carries us away to Vrindavan, and we can remember Krishna as Shyamasundara. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Double. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayom Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotarista Shishimad Pai Charanada Vinda Bhaktivedanta Sai Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotarista Shishimad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Nama Charya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Zikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gokopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Navditam Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Jamuna Devi Ki Jai, Sambeta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. So it's very important in the Sankirtan movement to have and be on the ready, to be on the ready to distribute Krishna consciousness to others. If we're prepared for it, then the opportunities will come up. And the more that we're able to pour mercy into the world, the more the mercy overflows within our own community. That's how to have a successful community. And therefore, the mission statement for ISKCON of Silicon Valley, which by the way stands for individual, spontaneous, and voluntary. You can't force people to do things, but if you create an environment in which people spontaneously attracted and then they can express themselves according to their talent. Then you have something very valuable. It's something that the Qazi pointed out when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He told one of his ministers that actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God. And he said the reason is he has tens of thousands of people following him. They've left their homes and they're doing everything for him. They're worshiping him. They're living under trees, and they're not getting paid. He said, if I stopped paying salary to my people, they would mutiny and try to kill me. So this voluntary spirit, wanting to worship Krishna with one's own volition, is the most important aspect. And one of the most known ways to attract the glance of Srila Prabhupada was always to distribute Krishna consciousness to others. It's how devotees got his attention, is to be involved in spreading the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, do we have reports? Or is everyone all spent from the last report? You have a report you want to make from Bhakti community? Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Hoping this can go away. So as you know, Bhakti community is an online community which is focused on introducing newcomers to Bhakti Yoga. So whenever you go out for books, please do also introduce Bhakti community so that they can take advantage of it. You can visit bhakticommunity.com/invite newcomers to know the steps, or you can just send them to bhakticommunity.com and sign them up. This week, we had quite a few newcomers who joined Bhakti community. I wanted to thank Adin Prabhu. He introduced Vakar Prabhu. He came on to Bhakti community, he was very happy that he could come and ask questions and get information. And also, Nam Chintamani Mataji from Sydney, I wanted to thank her also. She brought in Whitney, and it was a very joyous time. She had, I think, a couple of months old baby in her lap. And she still joined, and the baby was smiling throughout. Like at least half an hour I was watching just the baby. It was so cute. I was just watching the baby, and he was just, not just allowing mother to participate and hear the lecture, but also it was very pleasant. And Whitney was very thankful to Nam Chintamani Mataji actually that she introduced them. I think she went to mantra meditation program locally, and she joined Bhakti community. She got a lot of wisdom. And she did mention there was some reluctance. She was not sure whether to join or not, but she still ended up coming to join, and she was very happy she made that decision. So thank you so much, Nam Chintamani Mataji, for introducing. And also Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. Dr. Alan is here because of him. He has been helping him in answering questions, etc. And finally, happy that Dr. Alan is here. I don't know if you're still there, Dr. Alan. If so, please do say hi. And lastly, I want to, Pavani, are you there?
Yeah, I am here. Akshaya has been coming to Bhakti community for quite some time now, and she has regularly started attending all our programs. She comes to the Women's Circle and the Bhakti Circle, and she has deep questions. She participates in nice conversations. So I wanted to thank her. Today she is at the temple, so I want to acknowledge her presence and thank her for being such a good participant and growing yourself and helping us with your association.
Very well. Yeah, thank Akshaya. She has been such a wonderful addition to the community. The sort of deep questions she asks and reflection she makes is very beneficial to all of us, actually, in learning from her perspective. And as Vaishkamara was just mentioning in the morning, If you want to chant attentively, ask Krishna to please help me chant attentively. Similarly, if you, I don't know if Raksha, do you want to share your story, how she, I just want to give her a minute because this is how Krishna reciprocates. I just wanted her to have that opportunity.
Thank you, everybody, for welcoming me. I don't like being in the spotlight. I came here. It's a very interesting story. I was walking outside the temple with my husband, and I saw the temple, and I said I wanted to study Bhagavad Gita. And I saw Keshava, he's here, walking outside the temple, and just by chance, I stopped Keshava and I said, I want to study Bhagavad Gita. Are there any classes for Bhagavad Gita? And one thing led to another. I became a part of the Bhakti community. And I'm learning so much more than Bhagavad Gita. There's like certain things about life and how you should live them. You don't really think about it, how you should be, dealing with situations around you. And through Bhakti community, I'm like learning how to like pick up these small nuances of how to like stay grounded when everything around yourself is moving fast or you're stuck in the middle of chaos. And I'm thankful for everybody, and they're all patient, and they're so welcoming, and I'm always very excited every day when I have to like join Bhakti community. I'm always looking forward to learning something more, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Akshaya, for joining, and thank you so much to Keshav Prabhu as well for helping her, guiding her in this process. Just a couple of more quick announcements, hopefully. Next is both Premarupa Madhav Prabhu and Premarupini Madhav Mataji. They shared a reflection from a newcomer. A newcomer felt that it was very beautiful, the session that they conducted. And very similarly, he did mention that I want to say that I pray to God. I think he wants to thank because you came to my mind from nowhere, and he was very happy that, it's like costless mercy. It's given to you because you want it. He was very thankful about it. Another announcement is next week we have a program focused on newcomers, an afternoon with Vash, which is on July 9th, 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. in Palo Alto. So if you know of any newcomers who might benefit from just getting together, have some casual conversation, and have some nice discussion, please do email hi@bhakticommunity.com, and we'll be very happy to add them to join the program. And we also have the daily mantra meditation circle every day from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. So if you want to just maybe have your morning practice, please do join that. Or if you know any newcomer who might benefit, they don't need to be there for 2 hours. They can come in 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and they can take advantage of it. So thank you. That was the announcement from today.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. After the wonderful festival we had on Tuesday for Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where we distributed 776 Bhagavatam sets. We're just moving on because this is just a middle stop that we have until we come to Bhadra Purnima, where we distribute 2,500 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. But our next MSF is Janmashtami for Lord Krishna, and the MSF name is All You Need Is Love, that is Krishna. Haribol. Haribol. And our goal is to distribute at least 50 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. And as I mentioned, this is just a step in between before we reach our Bhadra Punya, which is coming up on September 10th, very soon. So please join us. And as Prabhu was mentioning in the class this morning, in the Japa circle, how he was saying about diffused responsibility. I see that at ISV, even though we have a goal of 2,500 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, everybody thinks that it's their personal responsibility to distribute 2,500. So, Haribol. And this has been the mood since the beginning when His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu has set the goals. And I've seen that devotees have already set out for traveling Sankirtan today. Krishna Prabhu and his wife went on a Grihastha traveling Sankirtan party to attend a music festival. There they are distributing, I'm hoping, hundreds and thousands of Bhagavatam sets. And same as Kautuk Karna Prabhu and Naveen Prabhu, they went to another music festival because it's a long weekend to distribute Bhagavatam sets and many other books. And we have devotees going out here, door to door as well. One in Pleasanton area, one in Fremont area, and one in Cupertino. We have 3 spots here. And one team will go either to Santa Cruz or Monterey. Haldarupa Prabhu or Achyuta Chaitanya Prabhu is leading one team there. So whoever you meet, just talk about Srimad Bhagavatam or give them a Bhagavad Gita, whatever they like. But the more important thing is that you remind them of Krishna somehow or the other. So we are so excited for this next MSF. And we also would like to announce that tomorrow we will be starting a weekly scrum where we will meet after the kirtan in the temple hall for 10 or 15 minutes only, where we'll discuss different ideas to increase book distribution. So it would be at the temple. It will be a weekly scrum of the Sankirtan devotees. We can all discuss and how we can improve. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Vandika, what's going on in the west wing of the building?
Hare Krishna. Today's prasadam was cooked by Kuladweep Prana Prabhu, Simantani Saki Mataji, and Dear Prashant Prabhu.
Now we're going to sing a very practical but heartfelt song about honoring prasadam. Shainamrita Pao. We accept prasadam and honor it because it's the mercy of Krishna. And this is the most joyful of all the processes we have, in my humble opinion, here in the Krishna consciousness movement. And it's in Bengali, so we can all sing together. If you don't know Bengali, no one will notice. Sharida Vidya Jal Jodendriya Kaheka Jibe Pele Vishaya Sagore Dharmatyeti Vayati Loba Moisu Durmati Taki Jeta Katita Shanshare Krishna Varodoyamoy Kori Bare Jihvajay Swaprasadanna Dilobhai Shayanamrita Pao Radha Krishna Gunagao Reme Dako Shri Chaitanya Nita Reme Dako Shri Chaitanya Mahaprasade Govinde Namrani Vaishnave Sapa Punya Padam Rajan Sato Navajayate Prasade Sarvatikana Manirasho Vajayate Tepayopavutta Swagnanda Bhaktavantar Charchitaha Uttishta Bodhino Dasa Savamayam Jayimahi Bhagavat Shri Mahaprasadiki Gaur Premanande Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. We're welcoming all the newcomers who have come here today. Thank you very much for coming. It's kind of Silicon Valley for the first time. Who are you? Thank you. Thank you for coming. And where have you come from? West Bengal. Haribo! Nitai Gauranga. Thank you very much for coming. Will you stay or are you passing through? 1 month, okay. Well, we very much look forward to having your association over the next month. And if there's anything you need, please let Srivas Pandit Prabhu know, and he'll take care of you. Hare Krishna. Anybody else here for the first time? Pardon me? Okay. Malini's parents are visiting from India. Let's welcome Hare Krishna. You've done the greatest service to the world by bringing an exalted Vaishnavi into this world. The values that she has in her heart, the determination, all the good qualities are coming from you. And now she's affecting millions of people around the world by her leadership. So we thank you a million times. Everyone could also please thank them individually. And will you be staying? Only a few weeks. Please consider staying longer. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Please. Yes, Monisha. Whose birthday? Balaram, it's your birthday today? Hare Krishna. How old are you? 18. Wow. That's right. Well, Balaram, from all of us here at ISV, watching you grow up here and become a responsible and also a very serious devotee, what to speak of having qualities, leadership qualities, while being soft-hearted and determined, and also being very accomplished while not putting on any airs whatsoever. In fact, no one could even tell what you were doing because you keep so low-key, but you're doing so much. You epitomize what's one of the things that's great about our community, and that is that it provides a place for those who grow up in Krishna consciousness to become accomplished in the material world and to be sure-footed and established in the spiritual world as well. So you're our poster child for that. And we wish you a happy birthday today, and that Krishna may protect you and empower you over these next 82 more years to spread Krishna consciousness and be a kind friend to all living entities. Om Tat Sat. Gaur Premanande Hari. Would you like to say anything for your birthday? I know it's age-old tradition here to embarrass everybody on their birthday.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for those very kind words. I'm just so grateful to be a part of this community. It's really wonderful how we're all just able to come together and everyone's so enthusiastic. And I really like the point you just said a couple minutes ago where the mission of this temple was to create this atmosphere where everyone feels that they can spontaneously volunteer and they want to do it. And that's how I always feel when I come to the temple or when I engage in any service with ISV. It's just so spontaneous and voluntary, and I love it. And that's very unique to this temple. It doesn't just happen, at least for me, it doesn't just happen everywhere. So I'm really grateful to be a part of this, and I'm so happy to be in your association, Maharaj, for all these years. You are my beacon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Is a cake going to come rolling out, or Vanchakalpa tarubhisha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Anything else? Okay. Vanchakalpa tarubhisha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Please come take prasadam.